We are inside a dark cave where you can't see anything until a light is turned on. As we go back in this cave, it becomes quiet. The air gets cooler and feels damp. It is damp, dark, and cool in here all the time, winter or summer. In fact, the temperature seldom changes over 1 degree. Why doesn't it get hot in the summer or cold in the winter? This cave is insulated from temperature changes outside. The layers of rock and soil above the cave don't let heat pass through. It is damp here because water seeps down through the layers of soil and rock, but is not removed by drying winds. With a constant temperature, no winds, no rain, no snow, and enough water, you would expect to find plants and animals living here. This cave is the home of different living things called organisms. These organisms live together in a group called a community. A cave is a very good place to study a community of living things because it is small and simple. It is not affected much by changes in weather, and it is closed off from the rest of the world. But the things that scientists learn from studying a simple cave community help them understand the more complicated communities in forests, grasslands, lakes, and other places. Both the individual organisms and the community in this cave differ from organisms and communities outside. Why might they be different? In what ways might they be different? These are some of the living things found in the forest above the cave. Compare these organisms with those found in the cave. How do they differ? Are the organisms in the forest or in the cave larger? Are there any large green plants in the cave? Here are several pairs of animals. One animal from each pair lives in this cave. The other related animal lives in the forest above. How does the color of cave animals differ from the color of similar forest animals? Most cave animals have very small eyes or no eyes at all. Remember, we are seeing these animals under bright lights. They normally spend their whole lives in total darkness. How do they find their way in the dark? Many cave animals do have large antennae or feelers. How might these help them move about and find food? The animals living in this cave are different from the animals living outside. The cave animals are smaller. There are not so many different kinds of them, and there are not very many of each kind. Why aren't there many animals? And why are they small? All organisms must have energy in order to live and grow. Some animals get their energy from eating other animals, and the animals they eat get their energy from green plants. Green plants, in turn, get their energy from sunlight. So, if there is no light inside this cave, there can't be any green plants. Then, where do the organisms in a cave get their energy? They must get it from food coming in from the outside. But how does it get in? A small stream runs through the cave. Maybe food, in the form of organisms, pieces of organisms, or their wastes, are carried in by the stream. How could we find out if energy gets in this way? We can take a sample of the water and look at it carefully to see if there is any food in it. Although there are no large pieces of plants or animals in the water, do you think there might be tiny organisms or pieces of organisms in it that we can't see without using a microscope? A careful look at our water sample with the microscope shows that there is very little food material in it. Does this mean that there is never very much food in the stream? When might there be more in the water? How else might food get into the cave? A few of the cave animals, such as crickets, may go outside to get some of their food. Bats go outside the cave to get all of their food. They fly out when it begins to get dark. They feed on insects flying around outside. They then come back into the cave before it gets light. How could bats provide food for the other organisms in the cave? The other cave organisms are too small to kill and eat bats. Once in a while, bats die, and their bodies become food for other organisms. Most of the food for other organisms, however, is provided by bat wastes, or dung, which drops on the cave floor or in the water. The bat droppings, or wastes, provide energy for many living things. Millipedes, cave crickets, amphipods, and isopods. These animals may use the bat dung directly as food. When they eat the dung, they also eat tiny organisms living in it, such as one-celled bacteria, seen here through a microscope. Molds, with thread-like bodies, look like small tufts of hair growing out of the bat droppings. Some of the molds form mushrooms and toadstools. Both bacteria and molds put out chemicals that decompose or break down the bat dung into simpler materials. The bacteria and molds then take up these simple materials into their bodies and grow. Some small animals feed only on the growing bacteria and molds, but most eat whatever food is available. Unlike animals outside, cave animals are not very particular about what they eat. All the animals that eat either the dung or the bacteria and molds are in turn eaten by predators or meat-eating animals. The animals that feed on the dung are small, and there aren't very many of them. So they don't supply much food for the predators. For this reason, there aren't many predators in a cave, and they aren't very big. Except for bats, the largest predators in this cave are blind cave salamanders. In certain other caves, the largest predators are blind cavefish and cave crayfish. These cave predators are only 4 or 5 inches long. Each organism plays a special part in the food relations in a community. One kind of organism depends upon another for food. These food relations in a community can be shown by drawing lines between the organisms and their food supply. Even in this simple cave community, these lines form a complex web. This is called a food web. If all of one kind of organism in this food web were killed or removed, what would probably happen to the other organisms? There are so few individuals of each kind of animal in a cave that removal of only one or two animals might upset the entire community. Why? What might happen to the organisms if the stream were to dry up, or if the cave were to be changed in other ways? This cave community depends upon food materials brought in from the outside in the form of bat wastes or dung, by crickets, or as small pieces of plant and animal material washed in by the stream. Bacteria, molds, and small animals get their energy from this material. Other animals feed on the bacteria, molds, and dung-eating animals. What would happen if the supply of material from the outside got smaller or stopped coming in? In some ways, the whole world is like a cave. Both the earth and a cave get just so much energy from the outside. In the case of the earth, the energy is in the form of sunlight. All the living things on earth depend upon this light energy. Many things that man does put small particles into the air. They can cut down on the amount of light that reaches the earth. How might this affect all life on earth?